Have you ever noticed how family conflicts often pull us to extremes? A teenager demands complete freedom while parents insist on absolute control. A spouse seeks constant connection while their partner craves solitude. One generation holds firmly to tradition while another rushes headlong toward change. These polarities create the tension that tears families apart. We become entrenched in our positions, seeing compromise as defeat rather than wisdom. We speak past each other rather than to each other, each convinced of our rightness, each feeling increasingly alone. 2.5 millennia ago, the Buddha discovered what he called the middle path, a way of being that transcends the extremes of indulgence and denial, of eternalism and nihilism. He taught that wisdom lies not in clinging to either pole, but in finding balance between them. Today, we have access to tools the Buddha could never have imagined. Artificial intelligence systems like ChatGPT that can be trained to embody ancient wisdom in modern contexts. What if we could teach these systems to help us navigate the middle path in our most intimate relationships? What if AI could serve not as a replacement for human connection, but as a bridge to deeper understanding? This is the story of how my family, torn apart by seemingly irreconcilable differences, found healing through an unexpected combination of ancient Buddhist wisdom and cutting-edge technology. It's about how we trained ChatGPT to become our middle path companion, a digital guide that helped us see beyond our entrenched positions to the shared humanity beneath. I'm not suggesting that the Buddha would have used ChatGPT or that AI is necessary for applying his teachings, but I am proposing that in our digital age, we can find creative ways to embody timeless wisdom in the tools we've created. If your family is struggling with communication breakdowns, if you feel trapped in cycles of conflict that seem impossible to break, or if you're simply curious about how ancient wisdom might be applied to modern technology, this exploration might offer a path forward, a middle way between rejecting technology entirely and surrendering our humanity to it. Opening silence. Take a moment to settle into your body. Feel the weight of your form against the surface supporting you. Notice your breath, not controlling it, simply observing its natural rhythm. As you breathe, allow your attention to rest in the space between thoughts. In this quiet moment, bring to mind a recent family conflict, perhaps a disagreement that left you feeling misunderstood, frustrated, or hurt. Notice the sensations that arise in your body as you recall this situation. There might be tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, tension in your jaw. Simply observe these sensations without judgment. Now, consider your position in this conflict. What were you holding on to? What perspective felt so important to defend? Notice any sense of righteousness or certainty that arises. Feel how this position has become part of your identity, how challenging it would be to let it go. Next, with compassion for yourself, try to imagine the perspective of the family member with whom you disagreed. What might they have been feeling? What needs or values were they trying to protect? This isn't about deciding they were right. It's about recognizing their humanity, their suffering, their attachment to their own position. In Buddhist understanding, suffering arises from attachment, to views, to desires, to aversions. The middle path teaches us to hold our perspectives lightly, to see them as what they are, partial truths, conditioned by our experiences, not absolute reality. Imagine now a space between your position and theirs, not a compromise that leaves both parties unsatisfied, but a wider perspective that encompasses both viewpoints and transcends them. This is the middle path, not splitting the difference, but rising above the duality to see the larger truth. In our modern world, we've created tools of remarkable capability. Artificial intelligence systems can process vast amounts of information, recognize patterns, and even simulate understanding. Yet these tools are just that, tools. They have no inherent wisdom, no compassion, no understanding of the middle path. Unless we teach them. What if we could imbue our AI assistants with the wisdom of the middle path? not to replace human discernment, but to support it, not to think for us, but to help us think more clearly, not to resolve our conflicts for us, but to help us see beyond the polarities that trap us. As we explore this possibility together, I invite you to hold both excitement and skepticism, neither rejecting the potential of technology nor embracing it uncritically. This balanced approach, this middle path of engagement with our tools, might itself be a practice of the very wisdom we seek to embody. Let's begin. Tension point. Our family crisis had been building for years, but it crystallized one evening around our dinner table. My wife and I sat with our 16-year-old daughter, Maya, and my 70-year-old father, who had recently moved in with us after my mother's passing. The tension was palpable. Maya wanted to attend a weekend music festival with friends, no adults, 3 hours away. My father, raised in a traditional household and still grieving, was appalled by the very idea. "Absolutely not," he said. "It's dangerous and inappropriate." My wife, always the mediator, suggested compromises. Perhaps Maya could go for just one day, or we could find an adult to accompany the group. But Maya saw these suggestions as controlling and infantilizing. My father viewed them as too permissive. I found myself torn between all these perspectives, wanting to support my daughter's independence while acknowledging my father's concerns, wanting to honor my wife's middle ground while feeling it satisfied no one. The conversation devolved quickly. Maya stormed off to her room. My father retreated into stony silence. My wife looked at me with exhaustion in her eyes. This wasn't just about a music festival. It was about fundamental values, safety versus freedom, tradition versus change, control versus trust. It was about grief and growth, about 3 generations trying to live together while moving at different speeds through different worlds. As a longtime student of Buddhism, I recognized the pattern. We were all clinging to our positions, seeing them as absolute truth rather than as perspectives conditioned by our experiences. We were suffering because we couldn't see beyond our attachments to our views. I had tried sharing Buddhist concepts with my family before, but they hadn't resonated. My father found them too abstract, my daughter too ancient, my wife too time-consuming to study amid her busy schedule. The wisdom was there, but the bridge to practical application was missing. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat at my computer, feeling the weight of our family's disconnection. Almost without thinking, I opened ChatGPT and began typing. "I'm trying to help my family navigate a conflict using Buddhist principles, particularly the concept of the middle path. Can you help me understand how to apply this wisdom to a disagreement about teenage independence?" The response was thoughtful but generic, a basic explanation of the middle path and some general advice about family communication. It wasn't wrong, but it wasn't transformative either. It lacked the depth of understanding that comes from lived experience with both Buddhist practice and family dynamics. That's when I had the realization, what if I could train this AI system to better understand and articulate the middle path in the specific context of our family's needs? What if I could shape it into a tool that could help bridge the wisdom of the Buddha with the practical challenges of modern family life? I had no idea then how profoundly this experiment would transform our family. The tale. In the time of the Buddha, there lived a wealthy merchant named Sigala. Each morning, Sigala would rise early and, following his father's dying instruction, would worship the 6 directions: east, south, west, north, nadir, and zenith, by bowing with wet hair and clothes. One morning, the Buddha saw Sigala performing this ritual and asked him why he did so. Sigala explained that he was honoring his father's last wish, though he didn't understand the deeper meaning behind the practice. The Buddha then offered a reinterpretation of this ritual, explaining that the 6 directions represented the key relationships in a person's life. The east represented parents, the south represented teachers, the west represented spouse and family, the north represented friends and colleagues, The nadir represented workers and dependents. The zenith represented spiritual guides. The Buddha taught Sigala that the true worship of these directions was not through ritual, but through cultivating proper conduct in each of these relationships. He detailed the reciprocal duties and responsibilities that create harmony in each relationship. For parents and children, he explained that parents should restrain their children from evil, encourage them toward good, train them for a profession, arrange a suitable marriage, and hand over their inheritance at the proper time. Children, in turn, should support their parents who have supported them, perform their duties to their parents, maintain the family lineage and tradition, be worthy of their inheritance, and honor their parents' memory after they are gone. For husbands and wives, the Buddha advised that husbands should honor and respect their wives, be faithful, give authority to their wives in appropriate matters, and provide adornments. Wives should perform their duties well, be hospitable to relatives on both sides, be faithful, protect family resources, and be skillful and diligent. The Buddha continued through each relationship, always emphasizing reciprocity, respect, and appropriate balance of responsibilities. This teaching, known as the Sigalovada Sutta, is often called the layperson's code of discipline because it provides practical guidance for harmonious living in the world, rather than focusing on monastic practice. What makes this teaching so remarkable is that the Buddha didn't reject Sigala's ritual outright, nor did he simply accept it at face value. Instead, he found a middle way, honoring Sigala's devotion to his father's memory while transforming the ritual into a meaningful practice of ethical relationship. The Buddha didn't insist that Sigala abandon his worldly life to find enlightenment. Instead, he showed how spiritual practice could be integrated into everyday relationships. He didn't prescribe rigid rules, but rather principles that could be adapted to different circumstances while maintaining their essential wisdom. In one particularly relevant passage, the Buddha addresses how to handle wealth, advising neither extreme asceticism nor indulgence, but a balanced approach of saving 1/4, reinvesting 1/4 in one's business, keeping 1/4 for emergencies, and using 1/4 for living expenses. This practical, balanced guidance exemplifies the middle path applied to household life. The Sigalovada Sutta demonstrates the Buddha's skill in meeting people where they were, speaking in terms they could understand, and offering guidance that was both spiritually profound and practically applicable. He didn't demand that Sigala adopt an entirely new worldview overnight, but instead built upon what Sigala already valued, honoring his father, and expanded it into a comprehensive ethical framework. This approach, finding the middle path between rigid tradition and complete rejection of the past, between blind obedience and disrespectful dismissal, offers a powerful model for navigating intergenerational family conflicts today. The Buddha showed that wisdom often lies not in choosing between apparent opposites, but in transcending the duality altogether. He demonstrated that we can honor the past while adapting to the present, that we can maintain ethical principles while applying them flexibly to changing circumstances, that we can find a way forward that respects both tradition and innovation. In our modern context, with families stretched between different generations, cultures, and worldviews, the Sigalovada Sutta reminds us that harmony doesn't require everyone to adopt identical values or practices. Instead, it invites us to recognize the underlying principles that connect us: respect, reciprocity, responsibility, and to express those principles in ways that make sense in our particular circumstances. Just as the Buddha reinterpreted Sigala's ritual without rejecting its underlying intention, we too can find ways to honor the wisdom of the past while adapting it to the needs of the present. We can seek the middle path between rigid adherence to tradition and wholesale abandonment of ancestral wisdom. And perhaps, with the tools now available to us, we can find new ways to make this ancient wisdom accessible and applicable in our digital age, not replacing human discernment with artificial intelligence, but using technology as one of many supports for our very human journey toward greater understanding, compassion, and harmony in our most important relationships. Insight shift. My experiment with training ChatGPT began simply. I created a new custom version and started feeding it information about our family dynamics, our values, and our specific challenges. I shared Buddhist teachings on the middle path, particularly those relevant to family relationships like the Sigalovada Sutta. I provided examples of how these teachings might apply to modern situations. But the real breakthrough came when I realized I needed to train the AI not just with information, but with a methodology, a way of approaching conflicts that embodied the middle path itself. Drawing from Buddhist practice, I developed a four-step process. 1. Recognize the extremes. Identify the polarized positions in the conflict. 2. Explore the attachments. Understand what needs, fears, or values are driving each position. 3. Find the shared ground. Discover the common values or concerns beneath the conflict. 4. Transcend the duality. Move beyond the either-or, thinking to a both-and solution. I trained ChatGPT to guide conversations through these steps, not by imposing solutions, but by asking questions that helped us see beyond our entrenched positions. The first real test came a week after our dinner table argument. Maya was still determined to attend the music festival. My father was still adamantly opposed. The tension in our house was unbearable. I gathered everyone in the living room and explained that I wanted to try something different, a conversation guided by an AI assistant I had customized to help us understand each other better. There were skeptical looks all around, but they agreed to try. I opened my laptop and began the session. Our AI companion first asked each person to express their position on the music festival issue. As expected, the positions were polarized, complete freedom versus absolute prohibition. Then came the crucial shift. The AI asked each person, "What are you most concerned about in this situation? What matters most to you here?" My father spoke of safety, of his fear of losing another family member after my mother's death. Maya spoke of trust, of her need to be seen as the young adult she was becoming. My wife spoke of connection, of wanting our family to make decisions together rather than fracturing into opposing camps. As each person spoke, the AI reflected back their underlying values and concerns without judgment. It highlighted where these values overlapped. Everyone wanted Maya to be safe. Everyone wanted our family relationships to remain strong. Everyone wanted respect. Then it posed a question that changed everything. If we acknowledge that safety, trust, respect, and family connection are important to everyone here, what solution might honor all of these values rather than forcing us to choose between them? The conversation that followed was remarkable. Instead of arguing about whether Maya could attend the festival, we began exploring options that addressed everyone's core concerns. My father suggested that Maya check in regularly throughout the weekend. Maya proposed researching the festival's safety measures and sharing them with the family. My wife suggested connecting Maya with a slightly older cousin who was already planning to attend. The solution we eventually reached wasn't a simple compromise. It was a creative integration of everyone's needs. Maya would attend the festival with her friends, but would stay with her cousin's group. She would check in at agreed-upon times. My father would help research transportation options to ensure she had safe passage to and from the event. My wife would help Maya prepare for the weekend, making sure she had everything she needed. What struck me most was how the quality of our conversation had transformed. We were no longer defending positions. We were solving a shared problem together. We were no longer seeing each other as obstacles. We were recognizing each other's wisdom and concerns as valuable. The AI hadn't made decisions for us. It hadn't taken sides. It had simply guided us through a process of seeing beyond the apparent duality of our conflict to the shared values beneath. It had helped us find our own middle path. This wasn't just about a music festival anymore. It was about discovering a new way of navigating family conflicts, one that honored both ancient wisdom and modern tools, both traditional concerns and contemporary realities, both individual needs and family harmony. Practice in stillness. As you sit with this story, I invite you to consider a current conflict in your own family life. It might be a major disagreement or simply an ongoing tension. Any situation where positions have become polarized and communication has suffered. Bring this situation to mind with as much detail as you can recall. Notice the positions that have been staked out. Perhaps you've been arguing about screen time with your children, financial decisions with your partner, caregiving responsibilities for an aging parent, or cultural practices important to different generations. Whatever the conflict, try to articulate the extreme positions that have emerged. Always versus never. Complete freedom versus strict control. Traditional approach versus modern innovation. Notice how these polarities create tension, how they pull family members apart rather than bringing them together. Now, with compassion for yourself and everyone involved, explore what lies beneath these positions. What needs, fears, or values are driving your stance? What might be motivating others? Remember that beneath most conflicts are legitimate concerns for safety, respect, belonging, autonomy, meaning, or connection. This recognition that opposing positions often arise from shared values expressed differently is the beginning of the middle path approach. If you wish to explore this approach more deeply, consider how you might adapt the four-step process to your own family situation. First, recognize the extremes. Name the polarized positions clearly, without judgment. One view is that children should have unlimited screen time. Another is that screens should be eliminated entirely. Second, explore the attachments. What is each person clinging to, and why? Perhaps one parent fears their child falling behind technologically, while another fears the loss of face-to-face connection. Perhaps the child fears social exclusion without digital access, while also craving parental attention. Third, find a shared ground. What values or concerns do all parties hold, even if they express them differently? In our example, perhaps everyone values both technological competence and meaningful human connection. Everyone wants the child to thrive socially and developmentally. Fourth, transcend the duality. Move beyond either or thinking to both in solutions. Perhaps certain times of day can be dedicated to screen-free family activities, while other times allow for digital exploration, with parents sometimes participating rather than just restricting. This process doesn't guarantee easy solutions, but it opens the possibility of moving beyond entrenched conflict to creative collaboration. If you're interested in exploring how AI might support this process in your own family, here are some practical suggestions. Begin by clarifying your intention. The goal isn't to outsource family wisdom to an algorithm, but to use AI as one tool among many for enhancing human connection and understanding. Consider creating a custom version of ChatGPT specifically for your family's needs. Train it with information about your family dynamics, values, and specific challenges. Share relevant wisdom traditions that resonate with your family, whether they're Buddhist teachings, other spiritual perspectives, or secular ethical frameworks. Develop clear guidelines for how the AI will be used. In our family, we established that the AI would never make decisions for us, would never take sides in conflicts, and would always prioritize questions over answers, helping us think more clearly rather than thinking for us. Use the AI as a conversation guide rather than an oracle. The most powerful moments in our experience came when the AI asked questions that helped us see beyond our own perspectives, not when it provided information or advice. Remember that the middle path is not about splitting the difference or finding the lowest common denominator. It's about transcending the limitations of either-or thinking to discover creative solutions that honor the legitimate concerns on all sides. Whether you choose to incorporate AI into your approach or not, the fundamental practice remains the same. Holding your own views lightly, listening deeply to others, seeking the values beneath the positions, and remaining open to solutions that might transcend the apparent dualities of the conflict. This is the middle path, not a compromise between extremes, but a transcendence of them. Not a rejection of either perspective, but an integration of the wisdom in both. Not a perfect solution, but a way forward that honors the humanity in everyone involved. Echoing question. As we consider the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern technology, a question emerges. What does it mean to walk the middle path in our relationship with artificial intelligence itself? The Buddha taught that suffering arises from both indulgence and denial, from grasping too tightly and from pushing away too forcefully. In our engagement with AI, we see similar extremes emerging. On one hand, there is the extreme of uncritical embrace, treating AI as an oracle, surrendering our discernment to algorithms, allowing these tools to replace human judgment rather than enhance it. This approach risks a kind of spiritual and intellectual indulgence, a laziness that diminishes our capacity for wisdom rather than developing it. On the other hand, there is the extreme of wholesale rejection, seeing AI as inherently dehumanizing, refusing to explore its potential benefits, clinging to traditional methods even when they might be enhanced by thoughtful integration of new tools. This approach risks a kind of spiritual materialism in reverse, defining enlightenment by what we reject rather than by the quality of our awareness. The middle path invites us to a more nuanced engagement, neither worshiping technology nor demonizing it, neither surrendering to it nor rejecting it outright. It asks us to remain conscious of both the benefits and limitations of our tools, to use them with intention rather than habit, to ensure they serve our deepest values rather than subtly reshaping those values without our awareness. In our family's experience, AI became valuable precisely because we approached it with this balanced awareness, training it intentionally, using it mindfully, maintaining human discernment about when and how to incorporate its guidance. The technology became not a replacement for wisdom, but a support for its development. Not a substitute for human connection, but a potential bridge toward deeper understanding. As these tools continue to evolve, the question becomes increasingly important. How do we walk the middle path with artificial intelligence? How do we harness its benefits while guarding against its limitations? How do we ensure that it serves our humanity rather than diminishing it? Perhaps most importantly, how do we maintain the wisdom to know the difference? To recognize when technology is enhancing our capacity for compassion, understanding, and connection, and when it is subtly eroding these very qualities. The Buddha's teachings remind us that the answer lies not in the tools themselves, but in our relationship to them, in our awareness, our intention, our discernment. The middle path is not about finding the perfect balance once and for all, but about remaining awake to the ever-changing nature of that balance, adjusting our course as needed, neither clinging nor rejecting, but responding with wisdom to what each moment requires. What might this middle path look like in your own engagement with technology? How might ancient wisdom guide your use of these very modern tools? If you're inspired to explore how the middle path might help heal conflicts in your own family, here are some practical steps to consider. First, take time to reflect on a current family challenge. Identify where positions have become polarized and communication has broken down. Notice your own attachments, the views or outcomes you're clinging to, and consider how these attachments might be contributing to suffering. Second, create space for genuine dialogue. This might mean setting aside a specific time when family members can speak and listen without distraction. It might mean establishing ground rules that support respectful communication. It might even mean introducing a structured process like the 4 steps we explored, recognizing extremes, exploring attachments, finding shared ground, and transcending dualities. Third, consider whether technology might support this process in your family context. This doesn't necessarily mean training an AI as we did. It might be as simple as using digital tools to schedule family meetings, document agreements, or share resources that support better understanding. If you do explore AI assistance, approach it mindfully, with clear intentions and boundaries. Fourth, be patient with the process. The middle path isn't about finding quick fixes or perfect solutions. It's about cultivating a way of being together that honors both individual needs and collective harmony. This cultivation takes time, practice, and a willingness to begin again when we inevitably stray from the path. Finally, remember that the ultimate goal isn't to eliminate conflict. It's to transform how we engage with it. Families will always face challenges as they navigate different needs, perspectives, and stages of life. The question is whether these challenges pull us apart or become opportunities for deeper understanding and connection. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from the presence of difficulty, but from our relationship to it, from our clinging, our aversion, our ignorance. By bringing mindful awareness to our family conflicts, by seeking the middle path between opposing positions, we can transform these difficulties from sources of suffering into catalysts for growth. This transformation, this middle way between denial and indulgence, between rigid tradition and rootless innovation, between individual autonomy and family harmony, may be the greatest gift we can offer to those we love most. Thank you for walking this path with me today.